So a little storytelling time here about parenthood and and saying things to your kids maybe you shouldn't. But let me tell you this story. Hey there, this is Perch. I posted something on Twitter that was a real conversation, although I suspect that a lot of the conversations on Twitter are not real conversations. And what I mean by that is I see these narratives that go on Twitter like, I walked into a store and a man said, women can't buy vegetables. And I said, down with the patriarchy, and everyone clapped. And you look at that story and you're like, that story doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I don't believe that actually happened. There's a lot of that goes on. I think people try and prove points through storytelling, and that's fine. That's normal and natural for people to do, but it's also goofy and silly at the same time. But anyway, so I had a conversation. I have these conversations with my daughter. I've got two girls, two daughters, one older than the other, both under 10, and the older one is definitely into science and My Hero Academia and superheroes and insects and spiders and that kind of thing. And the other one's into, Disney princesses and dresses and bows and all that kind of stuff. And both wonderful. One's not better than the other. It's two just radically different interests. I'm fascinated from a kind of a scientist point of view of looking at these two girls who are growing up with similarities and also vastly different interests and things they naturally gravitate to. And I'm parenting the same, and the home environment is the same for both. So why did one go one way and one go the other way? And what influenced both? It's just interesting to watch that play out. But the older one and I, because she's older and she's having more conversations, and I have an ongoing worry about what's being said at school and what kind of things they're, it's all the classic dumb parenting stuff you hear. I worry about what they're being exposed to on the internet. I worry about what the friends are saying and kind of how topics are being introduced. In this area I live in, there's a lot of you have to be very careful and look for the clickbait in news, because local news will go out and say, this school is going to teach everyone that monogamy is an old, outdated process, and they're going to teach that in the third grade. And then you freak out, and then you discover that the news article was super misleading. It was like one teacher who said something who probably shouldn't and was reprimanded, and it wasn't a school policy. And you have stuff like that go on all the time. But there are also things like the Seattle school district is definitely uh, pursuing at least a path to at least give some credence to the idea that math is a what is it is a culturally appropriated white dominated subject. I don't know, just something that is silly. And so these things come up and you try and track those. But the other thing that comes up far more, the thing I worry about a lot more than some school district doing something weird on one level or another. By the way, just for the record, so I keep it clean on both sides. If the school district announced that they were suddenly going to start mandating, like prayer at the start of every lesson, I would also have a problem with that for multiple reasons. You don't. Anyway, whatever. People float on both sides of the aisle. I'm equally irritated if schools are doing wacky things either side of the road. But the more concerning thing, I think that you talk to enough parents and eventually everybody migrates to the same thing. You don't worry about what the school's doing. You're worrying about what the friends and the other students are saying. And so one of the things that came up recently, which point of this video, is that the student, my daughter comes home and wants to know about shipping. What is shipping? Because apparently somebody in the class learned the idea of like, I ship David and Karen. And they don't really fully understand what it means. This is like the third grade, and they're going, I ship Molly and Bill, and oh my God, wouldn't it be hilarious if we could ship this dog and this teacher? And they don't really know what they're saying. I mean, they don't have the whole birds and the bees thing down at that age anyway. But they're starting to use this term shipping. So my daughter comes and says, what is shipping really mean? What is shipping? And And I say I'm sarcastic, and maybe in this case a bad parent, because I don't always pick up on when is something kind of a joke, and when is something maybe I just need to I probably need to self reflection here. I need to make sure that I'm tracking when the topic needs to be serious. So she says, what is shipping? And I say, well, shipping is when you go to the mailbox store and you put stuff in a box and you tape it up real good and you put a label on it and then you send it far away to somebody else. So like, hey, you remember like a month ago when we shipped that box of presents off to grandma? Remember when we did that? That was shipping. So we shipped stuff off. And then my daughter looks confused because the answer I gave her doesn't match, what she hears all the time. So then she says, well, why do people say they want to ship Captain America and Bucky? And this topic came up because we'd been watching the Marvel films and slowly going through some of those, and she knew, who Captain America and who Bucky was, and they were friends in the war and everything else. And she's now saying, well, why do people want to ship Cap and Bucky? And I asked her where she heard this from. Just somebody at school said, I'm shipping, Spider-Man and Black Widow, and I'm shipping Cap and Bucky. Now on the internet right now, there's a big, I don't know about big, but there's a loud contingent of people who are trying to basically encourage Marvel or the MCU to have Captain America and Bucky become a romantic couple. And I don't see that happening. Anytime soon, for a number of reasons. But anyway, but this continues. I'm shipping Cap and Bucky, and you can't tell me that I can't. So, all right, whatever. So my daughter then says, why do people want to ship Cap and Bucky? And I say, without skipping a beat, because sometimes I get just clever things, and sometimes I don't. I say, well, it's because these people hate the Marvel movies, and they want to put Captain America and Bucky into a box and like send it out far away, like send it into space. My daughter's like, oh, so they want to get rid of it. I'm like, yeah. So when people say I want to ship something, it means they want to like pack them up and send them to send them through the post office. She's like, okay, and she's nodding, and she's like, this answer still doesn't quite make sense, but why would Daddy lie to me? And so she wanders away, and then I feel kind of bad, like hope she doesn't explain that to other students at school and look like a fool, but I know she will. So yeah, I probably should correct that at some point. But anyway, these are the kind of things that go on. So I posted this tweet and got some attention, but that's the backstory behind the additional context behind what was going on there with this whole thing. I mean, in fairness, I had convinced my children that Pokemon were real as well, and you just had to go to Japan to catch them because they didn't live in the U.S. because of our climate, and so that also has bit me in the ass from time to time. So anyway, but these are the kind of things you do as parents when you're raising kids and you're in with comics. And I hope you found some humor in that story. And there you go, a little insertion for the day. Hey, if you like this video, if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe. But this is not the kind of video I do every day. So you're subscribing to different content from what you're hearing today. But there's a backstory about shipping Cap and Bucky. And how you talk to kids. So if you came into this video because I put a misleading title on it and you were expecting a big case about why Cap and Bucky should be an item, sorry, you heard about parenthood instead. Wah wah. Downvote. Leave me a comment. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.